Hello, everybody. Good morning. My name is Miguel Antunes, and I lead both public sector in Central Europe and the smart cities and urban transformation global practice at Deloitte. It's a real honor for me to welcome you all to this relevant and timely session on a Green Marshall Plan for Ukraine. Even though uncertainty remains about the duration of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, it's time to join forces and prepare Ukraine's reconstruction, understanding the social needs, fostering economic growth, while ensuring that this growth is green and sustainable. In times of war, budgets go for immediate priorities, namely defense, security, and to rebuild critical infrastructures that have been destroyed. Even so, according to the World Bank, impacts from climate change are making Ukraine increasingly vulnerable to droughts, high temperatures, heat waves, heavy precipitation, mud flows, and floods. Taking that into consideration, we may ask ourselves a relevant question. How can we, private sector, EU institutions, governments from all over the world, international donors, civil society, academia, and investors best help Ukraine to plan and to provide the country with the resources needed to lead a green recovery. Investments will need to come from different sources, public-private, but it's vital that the plans and investments align with the green agenda. It's important to invest at least in 6 areas. It's important to foster the green planning of public spaces, to rebuild the buildings and infrastructures in a smart and energy-efficient way. As we know, buildings account for 40% of greenhouse emissions. 3, to promote the decarbonization of the transport sector while promoting as well more sustainable mobility solutions. To incentivize the development of renewable energy sources, reducing the reliance on coal in the energy mix, to create a more resilient and smarter grids and systems, and also more decentralized, and also to embed circular economy along the way. But when trying to achieve reconstruction and green transformation simultaneously, what are some critical aspects to address in the journey? And we identified also 6. Governance. Set up the right governance model to consolidate the post-war reconstruction efforts, aligning national, regional, and local layers towards the green transition. And these will require extensive stakeholder consultation. Reconstruction projects should be layered together to build effect, rather than order as typically sequentially due to interdependencies. We will need to do things at the same time, which is not easy. Second is to raise the right level of funding to match this comprehensive ambition, and to bring in the public, but also the private sector at scale. Transparency and monitoring the effectiveness of funds will also be paramount. 3, ensure the right skills and institutional capacity to implement on the ground the different initiatives. Ukraine will have to be capable to maintain in the future the technologies and the solutions that will be built up front. And a super relevant thing is people will need also to come back and to make sure it lasts. 4, act locally, involving the Ukrainian cities to ensure, of course, the success on the ground. In Ukraine, we have 28 million people living in cities. It's 75% of the population. 5, leverage on post-war reconstruction past experiences. There are many interesting lessons learned from other European cities, such as the Balkans, in post-war reconstruction. Implementing tested approaches in rebuilding other cities will save time and energy. Sarajevo's experience is a great example. Nowadays, Sarajevo is one of the most vibrant cultures in Europe, as we all know. 6, follow, and why not? And I think it should overcome the benchmarks. There is a unique opportunity for Ukraine to become the reference in Europe, and why not for the world, in sustainable infrastructure, sustainable urban development, sustainable mobility. Leveraging on the best in class around the world will be critical. And of course, me, and other Deloitte leaders are 100% committed to continue to be used as bridge between the Ukrainian cities and what the best is being done all over the world, either in Europe, either in Middle East, like the NEOM case, and so on. Also, we are totally open to bridge with the more relevant institutions and networks like the World Economic Forum, with whom we have a global partnership on global policy, specifically on the cities arena. Just to finish and to giving an example specifically on Ukraine, our Deloitte teams have been working for some months with the city of Kiev. The team has been providing recommendations on a pro bono basis in the context of the development of a sustainable digital strategy for Kiev. Among others, 3 topics have proven to be very important for Kiev at this stage: public-private partnerships, a topic that will be intensively discussed today, big data, and digital twins. I had the pleasure to first meet with City Kiev leaders in 2022 Barcelona Smart City Expo, where Kiev got a special recognition for Kiev digital app advancements. The further outcomes of our discussions identify the opportunity to advance on sustainable city practices by jointly developing a unique resilience framework, relying simultaneously on Kiev teams and, of course, on global Deloitte teams. Kiev is apparently, and I got authorization to say that, Kiev is apparently eager to lead on sustainability, rebuilding in alignment with the goals of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and to be an example for other cities to follow. Kiev apparently is also open to partner with international donors and private investors to rebuild the city of Kiev, and to make it as a resilient hub for the CEE. Just to finish, for sure, with today's session, we will become closer to overcome the challenge of reconciling urgent needs with the green reconstruction. Also, also on how to best mobilize our efforts to support Ukraine and its cities. It was a pleasure for me to do you this introduction, and I would hand over to Fiona, our next moderator. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here today, because we've got a fantastic panel for you. I am Fiona Harvey, Environment Editor of The Guardian, and I'm going to welcome onto the stage people who are coming from the front line of rebuilding Ukraine to talk to us about how to do that rebuilding in a green and sustainable way. So I'd like to welcome Oleksandra Azarkhina, Deputy Minister for Restoration of Ukraine, who's in charge of rebuilding some of the damaged infrastructure. I'd like to welcome Olena Pavlenko, who's the president and co-founder of the Ukrainian think tank DiXi Group, working on managing projects with the World Bank, OECD, USAID, EU, and various others. Gulnara will join us too. She is secretary to the Committee on Urban Development at the UN Economic Commission for Europe. And we've also got Oleksandr Syenkevych, who's the mayor of the city of Mykolaiv. There we go. Thank you. Thank you very much to all of our panelists. Thank you to our audience here. We're going to talk about the idea of a green Marshall Plan for Ukraine, how that could work. So, Oleksandra, perhaps you could tell us, first of all, Really, what does that vision mean to you?
Thank you very much. So, first of all, we need to understand that the restoration of Ukraine, as green as it is, shouldn't be the consequences of the victory. It should be the way to it. We understand that we need now to build while fighting. We want to seize this war as soon as possible, but we need to survive first. Practically, the green restoration of Ukraine means proper framing. And I think the Ukrainian government is doing maximum to make sure that we prioritize the investments with the underground sustainable development goals on it, when we are counting not only on the legal framing, but also on the necessity to engage private businesses motivated to be greener, which means financial tools, and the municipalities, because we understand that the restoration, first of all, need to be the inclusive process when the municipalities, communities playing the leading role in this process. But also we need to work also with our citizens to make sure that they are included in this process. They understand and share the same approaches that the world, progressive world, has to.
Thank you very much for that. And I'm going to move on to Olena now to ask, really, what are the big ideas coming out about how we can rebuild Ukraine? What are you working on?
Thank you very much. Actually, recently, Ukrainian think tanks, including our think tank, DiXi Group, we have published a so-called Ukrainian Recovery Cookbook. We wanted to show that very simple principles can be applied to different sectors, being it cooking or green recovery, energy reconstruction. Like in kitchen, if you have transparent kitchen, you have more trust to cooks and to chefs. The same applies to green reconstruction and energy sector reconstruction. Now restaurants use more and more healthy food. And the same applies to energy sector. We use more and more healthy energy, renewables, and other green energy. Restaurants, in order to compete, have to more and more use energy-efficient technologies to consume less of energy. The same stands for countries. If they want to compete, they have to use energy-efficient technologies. Again, it applies to energy sector recovery and green recovery. There is one, and also one element which is important. If the regional characteristics matter, they actually define how cuisine is organized in different regions, whether you cook more meat or fish or beans, and the same applies for energy in the local generation. Regional characteristics will determine what exactly this or that local community or city will use, wind or solar or biomass. There is one more element which is important to take into account, and it also works in cooking and in energy sector. This is security and resilience. I think it will cost more if we will do this green recovery, taking into account the resilience and security. But it is important, and I think it is important for all of us, including the US and the EU. I don't think that a lot of European cities really took into account this security and resilience element when they were developing their green development plans and integration of more renewables in the local generation. In case of Ukraine, our experience, we came through this winter, could be a good, actually, experience, yes, and learning for lessons learned for many others. And also, if you look at the all-European Repower EU strategy, you will see how rapidly the European member states is going to shift to using more renewable energy. And I think Ukrainian experience and Ukraine also can be a testing ground for this. We can help to better understand how to combine different types of renewables for heating, for example, or for balancing of energy systems. So we all can benefit from this. And the last point I would like to mention is speed. Yes, you will hear a lot of good initiatives from local communities and cities of Ukraine, how they install solar panels or wind generation, but we have to still move much more faster. I will give you one example. European Investment Bank recently supported, I think, more than 80 projects for local communities in cities, but more than 1,000 project applications were submitted. So we have to move faster to be able to cover all the needs simultaneously and be able to scale up all the good experience. And I think this is a task for IFIs, for international partners to think how to organize this. And I'm definitely sure that all Ukrainians, including civil society organizations, government, cities, will be happy to support. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Gulnara, you're working on the reconstruction of Kharkiv and Mykolaiv. Where do you start with the green recovery?
Well, thank you, Fiona. I would like to remind that my organization, UNEC, was established in 1947 in connection to the German Marshall Plan for post-war reconstruction. This is when we had a committee for coal who was assessing coal resources across Europe and was proposing distribution of these coal resources. Committee with which I'm working, Committee on Urban Development, was established to develop compendium of building standards, which were sent across all Europe so that construction materials would go faster across Europe so that people would get the affordable housing quicker. Today, of course, situation is very different. UNEC is working on energy efficiency standards, on the standards of circular economy, on the e-transport, on the urban mobility. So, and what we see is that standards, green standards, technologies, they exist. So I agree that what we are speaking about, how we can do it faster, but also more efficiently. So developing the capacity, I think why we started working at the city level, well, of course, also because the Minister of Community and Territories Development then, he said that we don't have capacity. It was in April 2022 when we started this work. And he said, listen, we don't have capacity to work with you as we did usually with you on the standard, on the standards, on the convention and the national level. Go to the cities. This is when you need it the most. They're close to the community. They're working with the citizens. They can help citizens, to improve the quality of life better. So this is when we started. We engaged international companies like OneWorks, Norman Foster Foundation on pro bono basis. And the key to it, first of all, long-term. The long-term master planning is very important because we already see now that lots of organizations, companies coming in. So it's very important that we develop the long-term priorities for building back better using the existing technology. I mean, the technologies, standards, guidelines exist. European Union has conventions, directives which provide the best practices which can be introduced in Ukraine. Ukraine as a EU accession state can implement them. The issue is that we need to develop institutions at the local level. We need to establish very good communication between national, local, international level. What we also do is trying to build capacity by doing. We have weekly meetings with our colleagues in Mykolaiv, not just with the mayor's office, but also with the local architects. We have weekly meetings in Kharkiv. So it's also, by speaking to each other, becoming a family, we ensure that this learning, building local capacity is taking place.
Thank you very much. That's very important, that emphasis on the local there. Finally, I'm going to come to you, Oleksandra. As mayor, you're on the front lines of this. Tell us what's happening now.
Hello to everyone. First of all, let me put you in context so you will at least understand where Mykolaiv is. So it's on the south of Ukraine. Before the war, we had like 500,000 people in our city. We were the second biggest port in Ukraine. We worked with 30% of all bulk cargoes in Ukraine. We have biggest liquid storages in our city. We have US company Bungie, China company Kofco, South Korean POSCO, and recently we had a pilot project in concession with a Qatar company Q Terminals. But since the February 24th, we became the city on frontline. I want to remind you that the city of Mykolaiv stopped Russians on the south direction. On March 24th, we got the title as a city hero. but actually I say we are a city of heroes. So since the beginning of the war, let's say we had not only our military troops worked against the enemy, but also our municipal communal companies who worked on the front line, digging trenches, building fortifications. Well, all this time we've lost almost, let's say, a lot of people went out of the city. On the hardest time, when I carried the machine gun, we had like 220,000 people left in the city. Today we have about 350. 60,000 of them are from the region and Kherson, the officially counted IDPs. While all this time we provided people with the services like heating, water supply, and public transport. Even after the act of Russians, of terrorist act, which happened on April 12th, 2022, when they destroyed pipes that pumped the water, the raw water from Dnipro River, from Kherson region to our city. So almost 10 months we lived without raw water source. So we distributed water from boreholes to people by bottles, by everything, and we pumped the salty water from the Salzburg River, which our city stays on. So today we review this war. Altogether, we were bombarded about 290 days for all the war, with the amount of rockets at least 4, at most 38. This is a record. So average is 8 rockets per day. We've lost 157 people. 2 of them were children. But this amount is really small comparing to what we could have, because a lot of people left the city after continuous bombardments. And today we are viewing the war as a chance to become better. So we, in cooperation with UNECE, we work as a pilot project on development or reconstruction of our city, renovation on the Build Back Better basis. Also, we were the pilot city, and we created, before the war, we had a GIS system in our city, so we created another additional layer where we put all the damages. We do damage assessment evaluation, and to get now we have for this day we have about like 850 million euros of damages. Like 45% of social infrastructure was somehow damaged or destroyed. More than 1,000 buildings were destroyed or damaged. So we have a lot of things to do after the war. But again, we review this war, for sure, this awful war. But we need to think how will we develop the city after the end of this war for, let's say, 10, 20, 30 years, and do this on the basis of the experience of other successful cities which already resolved their problems, and especially those cities like Hiroshima or Rotterdam, who experienced the same situation as we, and to get best practices from them and put them on a master plan. For sure, we do it together with our local architects, as Gulnara said, but I think we need to use experience of people who already know how to resolve trivial problems, and that's why I'm really happy that we, in cooperation with Italian company OneWorks, now work at the pilot that could be then replicated on other cities that suffered like us.
Thank you. That's very interesting. And I'd like to ask, do the people of Ukraine support the move to build back greener and better? Oleksandra.
So hearing, let's say, the proper examples from Mykolaiv or from all the country, we all understand survival first. And you can't really think about something behind when it's question about your existence. It's basic human things. But at the same time, we understand the role of the civil society, of the government, of the municipalities here, and of the partners. We understand that we all need, and we already have, the frame. we have Green Deal, we have EU integration process, which is mostly green-oriented. We have net zero principles. Where practically, from the governmental point of view, the only way to have it in a place is to put it inside the legislation. Now we're developing the prioritization methodology together with the World Bank, and it's just sitting there, the necessity to check every project, either Ukrainian budget or IFI's financing through the mirror, through the lenses of the green economic and circular economic. At the same time, the people are voting by money. And all approaches we're trying to build now for the restoration, we're trying to make them data-based and at the same time very liberal. For example, now we established the policy for the compensations for the damage of the lost houses. It's mostly based on the digital tools, but a lot of the responsibility and work is actually on the local level. That tool allows people to choose where they will to live if their house was destroyed. It was destroyed in Kharkiv, they could move in the central Ukraine, that's no matter. There are no direct ask for the people, you should live in the, energy efficient and, environmentally friendly housing, because there are the basic needs need to be solved. But what we are asking from the partners is to actually push this through the business. We really would like to have more support for the entrepreneurs, for the construction companies, which are choosing the greener way. So the people will vote not only from their, philosophy and understanding of the life, but from the money, so that the solutions the business proposing will be just cheaper, more energy efficient, and less costly for the people. At the same time, Olena mentioned the energy. Now we are all focusing on the decentralized energy. You probably know Ukrainian energy system is super centralized, starting from the big facilities which were all around the country and given even a lower level. You probably don't know, but in Ukraine, in some apartments, when you want to cool down your apartment, you need to open the window because the system is so centralized. And it goes on all levels. We were so vulnerable this winter when it was easy just to kill 2 points, let's say in Kiev, to just black out all the city. That's why it's not only about the environment, but also about the national security to make sure that we have more capacities decentralized over the country. We're working on partners. Partners were supportive, but what we're lacking now, frankly speaking, feasibility study and design documentation. Because the opportunities is out there. There are support from all the sides, but frankly speaking, at the moment, there are more talks. There are no construction work started for the new co-generations in Ukrainian cities. And that's something where I'm pushing because we understand that the winter is coming again, and at some positions we're weaker than we were before. Of course, we don't want to to rebuild the old capacities because they're not green, they're not efficient. But at the same time, we have no choices if something new, not constructed. I love the successful stories we all have. I love the approaches our businesses and our citizens have, but at the same time, we cannot say that it's something which is already there. And again, it's bringing us to understand it that we need to be human-centered as well.
Thank you very much. So decentralizing is safer and greener. What do you think of the support that people have for this?
Happy to comment. Actually, we have organized an opinion poll for all national opinion poll in, I think, January, February this year. And the results were that around 90% of Ukrainians, they support green reconstruction. They support incorporation of all environmental friendly standards, energy efficiency standards for the reconstruction. Example from Mykolaiv, we had a call with one of your deputies in October, I think, and there were missiles flying around, and this deputy mayor said, okay, some of our people do the insulation of the houses right now under the missiles attacks. So another example, we now have a lot of communication with local communities, and they are ready to start discussing how to organize energy plans for themselves to also to incorporate energy efficiency and climate goals. So everything is ready, but there is only one but, very serious. There will be huge poverty and energy poverty in Ukraine after the war, and coming back to the opinion poll, around 80% of people said that it will be very hard for them pay additionally for their housing, for the reconstruction, if it will have this additional requirements and it will means additional payments. So we have to think again how to combine both green recovery, but also support to people to be able to move this path.
How to make it economical in the first place as well as economical in the longer term.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a key question there. I'd like to also talk about Ukraine's landscape, because biodiversity has taken a hit as well. We've lost a lot of forests and landscape and so on. Is there some effort going on to restore that? How can we draw that into a new plan? Would you like to take that, Gulnara?
Yes, well, I would like probably to continue what the Deputy Minister said, that about the design documentation and need to bring the private sector as well. So, in fact, as part of the pilot projects and now continuing our work, now we are signing the contract with the German Ministry of Economic Development and Cooperation for the project to prepare actual specifically design documentation for the master plans in Mykolaiv and in Kharkiv. And we are also looking into pilot project on kind of using circular economy, using the rubbles to refurbish the housing, for instance. So looking into different approaches, innovation centers, but also, as Fiona, you mentioned, the green and blue corridors. So urban forestry is one of the rather inexpensive but very effective way to improve the quality of life and also make people wanting to come back. So people are looking for better quality of life. It's possible to get also kind of a cheaper solutions through the urban design, for instance. So it's all possible. But another side of the model of this medal is education of the population, because I think one of our concerns is that we bring the top-level world architects, you know, to build better in Kharkiv, Mykolaiv, and other cities. But are people able to use it? So, for instance, we also conducted, the cities conducted actually surveys and trying to really bring this two-way communication between the citizens about where and when and how they want to do these pilot projects. But also we need to educate them and using them, because at the UNEC, I saw so many pilot projects across the region when we developed pilot energy-efficient buildings and people are not able to use them. So one of the activities that, for instance, already developing in Mykolaiv between our Italian partners to develop connection between universities. So to develop environmental education at university level, probably at school level, to bring capacity to use those innovative technologies also, especially with children.
Thank you very much. We can take some questions from our audience also. If you have questions, if you put your hand up or wish to make a comment, doesn't have to be a question, you can just make a comment.
There is a hand over there. Fiona?
Yep, sorry?
There's a question.
Where's
the hand?
What? There.
Oh, yeah. You have a question too.
Thank you very much. Heather Graby from Open Society and Bruegel. So we have the London conference coming up in which donors will talk about the kind of reconstruction aid that they are interested in supplying, even while the conflict is still going on. What would be the main things you would like them to include in their commitments to Ukraine? Is it about, for example, as you pointed out, the need to spend more in the upfront costs to ensure a green reconstruction, which then provides resilience and better outcomes later on, both for nature in Ukraine as well as for the economy? Is it mainly about the kind of conditionality that they put on debt forgiveness and whether they supplied grants and loans? What's the best way of ensuring that the green component doesn't get lost once the donors start looking seriously at the figures involved?
Great, thank you. I'll put that to our panelists in a moment. I think we had a question over here as well.
Answer?
Thank you. Any other questions I'll take at the, yeah, and here.
Yes, thank you, Angela Howard, Georgia Tech. I wanted to ask, you all come from different levels of participation, different levels of involvement, and you mentioned the importance of incorporating municipalities, country-level efforts, international efforts, and you mentioned the importance of communication. What does that communication look like, and how can you incorporate all of these efforts into one cohesive green rebuilding plan?
Thank you very much. That's great. So communication there, if you can keep that in mind. We have a question here, and then we have a question over there, and then I'll put these to our panelists.
Thank you very much. Anshul Vora from Foreign Policy. The question is for the Minister. Is it possible to start reconstruction in Ukraine before the war ends? And how would you suggest that gets started? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. We'll give you a chance to respond to that in one moment. Sir.
Jacob Kierkegaard from the German Marshall Fund. Question on the green recovery. I mean, one of the things that the overarching economic strategy of Ukraine is obviously EU accession. But the reality, of course, is the EU itself is moving very rapidly towards a greening, fit for 55, etc. future. So my question is, what role does the need to basically adhere to a large amount of, rules, regulations, decarbonized industries, etc. in the EU to be ready to join such a club in the medium-term play already in the emerging reconstruction effort?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. So, panelists, Minister, I'm going to take you first because we had a question very directly at you on how can we start reconstruction, and then I'll take each of our other panelists.
But for the London, frankly speaking, the key is again business, because we all understand that Ukrainian needs are here, money promised here, money allocated in Ukraine, like that. We understand that. But we understand that it's impossible to organize this process without the private businesses. Of course, first of all, Russia needs to pay for that, because that's their responsibility, but also the business. So the question we will raise on the London conference, it's all about the way we can support the business. And the business is the best implementator of the best technologies approaches for the greener approach. And that's the way to transform better and organize better. Our economic survived somehow. We still have operational businesses. And let's say energy decentralization. It's still not very fast, as I mentioned, but let's say the businesses, Ukraine has quite a strong agrarian sector already developing and building their own capacities to produce the energy from the biomass. That's the way how it can be more efficient. And also, it's very important for us, and we can probably answer this question for the how to start the restoration right away. During the last year, we already repaired or rebuilt 33,000 objects. Of course, these are objects of different scale. But for example, we have totally destroyed 360 bridges, and that's only on the main roads. From this, like a 360 bridges, it's incredibly big amount. And from them, we established the temporary passages nearly on 100, and we're now constructing 42 of them. Because it's again question of the survival. We need to evacuate people, we need to deliver the food to the people, and in the same time, the bigger picture, export. Ukraine economy is export-oriented. We know what's happening with the blockade of the seaports. The situation with Mykolaiv is even the worst. At the same time, our businesses are trying to build additional routes. And frankly speaking, now the Danube River became one of the life-serving ways for us. And yes, we are keeping our eyes how to make sure that our infrastructure answers the necessity to export Ukrainian tools. And that's about the world security. Food security is also here. That's why we understand that the reconstruction is happening now already, because it's for the people who are living in Kiev. I'm living in Kiev with my 5-year-old son. It's happening only because we have a good air defense. But in the same time, we understand that the zero question for all our reconstruction questions, it's the defense. The Black Sea Grain Initiative had a chance only because we recaptured this mini island, the Snake Island. That's why the idea I would like to bring in everyone's head, that the only way actually to see this war is to provide the security guarantees, because to make our transition greener, We just need to stop the pollution by the weapons. And actually, one of the additional thoughts, and I think it's a good platform to mention that it's a NATO membership.
Yeah.
We need political invitation for the NATO because it's way cheaper than to put Patriot systems all over the country. Just no one has such money. Thank you.
It will be, yes. Thank you very much. Thank you for that.
And I may combine all three questions. So first of all, sorry, I'm sitting with my back to you. But in Ukraine, we say after use there should be a wall or the person you trust. So I trust you guys. First of all, if we speak about restoration, we need to understand that we need businesses to come to Ukraine, because Ukraine by itself doesn't have any money or to renovate itself. For sure, if we speak about business is about money. Money is about risks. The bigger risk, the bigger margin. The less risk, the less margin. So we invite all the people to invest in Ukraine now, but I'm not sure if anyone will come today in Mykolaiv and start their business. But at least on a level of feasibility study or design study. So for sure, we review as city of Mykolaiv, for example, not as a place for investments for our city only, but as a door for investment for all other cities ruined in Ukraine. And for sure, if we speak about new standards of building, like the question you asked, for sure, we need to build new enterprises, new factories on the green transition rule. So to make them more greener, more efficient. But if we speak now about Ukraine, it's not about efficiency. So I was in Hanover Messe, where people discuss how to move from gas to hydrogen. But today in our country, in our city, there is a plan to cover the destroyed windows with the plywood provided with from Denmark to heat buildings at least for the minimum temperature to live there. So for sure we need to end this war, and after that we will be able to speak about green transition, electric transport and everything. Now it's about survival.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
For a short comment about the forest. So one of the cities not far from the Mykolaiv, they cut all the forests around the city and inside cities parks as well, because they're building fortification. That's, and again, like I'm just like supporting to the mayor words. Unfortunately, we need to focus on that. And I think one of the worst things Russia did, that they turned our attention from the green transition for the better world to the weapons again. I'm an expert now already in all types of the air defense. I don't want to be. I want to speak about nitrogen. But unfortunately, and that's another reason to stop it. Thank you. Sorry.
No, that's a very important point. Thank you very much. Thank you for making it. Gulnara, your final words on the answer to these questions.
Just maybe on the communication. I think digital and green are going together. And one of the key aspect of work in terms of communication using digital tools. I think Mykolaiv is really the pioneering city in the using these online tools, and thanks to that, this long-term master planning was possible really to do very fast in Mykolaiv. For instance, OneWorks, the company and the city government is using even communication with local people using the online platform, saying like where you want to have your park or when you want to have your road. So it's done using digital platform. The digital platform is also important to ensure transparency, because the positive image of Ukraine will remain very high if transparency is maintained. There is no duplications, because we see from Syria or Iraq, there were duplications in activity of the donors. So one of the instruments that we're discussing actually with the ministry is kind of investment trackers, where we would be able to online show who is supporting what, that there is no really duplications, and really also like urban cadastre. So this kind of digital tools will really help us to make also Ukraine green. But as Vice Minister also said, the anthropocenic kind of the human dimension is very, very important. So it's definitely, we, for instance, also making lots of thematic workshop with cities in Europe, where we bring Ukrainian experts outside of Ukraine, let's say, to Helsinki, London, Berlin, so that, again, coming back, when we have the best technologies in Ukraine, who will maintain them, who will further develop? The local experts, the young local experts. We need, so this is also a call to European cities to invite more, share your experiences, bring more Ukrainian experts, teach them how to use hydrogen and any other innovative technologies, so that they would be able to implement by themselves. I think this is what Minister was saying, that it's about entrepreneurship on the enterprise level, on the personal level, but it will be possible when mentality will change, when the people have high expertise, and this requires much stronger communication, both digital but also personal.
Just where I jump in.
Very, very, very quickly,
Digital.
Minister, because we need to have our last word.
We did our homework, and we already have the DREAM system, digital restoration ecosystem for accountable management. There are already 5,000 objects in there, and we're going to present that in London, and that will be the only way for us to make sure that we're keeping track on everything. But I agree with you, we can go deeper and make transparent on all levels. Thank you very much.
I think you've answered nearly all of the questions there. I'll give a very, very final word very quickly to you.
And very fast, yes, not to steal the coffee bows. On URC, I think the main elements we should discuss is standards, oversight, war insurances, and investments, including private investments. And for example, talking about civil society is doing with EBRD a separate side event on the private investments in energy sector, how to boost them. On communication, I think people will be ready to pay more if they understand that they will win in a long-term perspective. This is a message we have to discuss with all Ukrainians. This will not be easy, but this is our task for all of us, and again, including civil society. And the question from GMF colleague, I think this is for Ukraine, this is a great chance to do the leapfrog, yes? To use everything which is already implemented in Europe, use new technologies, implement something new in Ukraine, and then probably, as I said, it could be a good testing ground for European cities than to use there to increase their capacity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, thank you all very much. It's been a great privilege to have you all here with us today. I'm sure we all wish you the best of luck with your efforts. Thank you to our audience. I hope that was all of your questions very thoroughly answered there. And now it's time for your coffee break. So please join me in thanking our panel. Thank you.